I still remember the day I bought the house. It was supposed to be the beginning of something beautiful, a foundation for a lifetime of memories, built brick by brick, secured by trust, or at least, that's what I thought. It was a masterpiece of a home, nestled in one of the finest neighborhoods in the city. A modern Mediterranean-style villa, with grand arched doorways, sleek marble floors, and panoramic windows that let in the golden hue of every sunrise. I stood at the entrance, running my fingers over the smooth metal of the custom nameplate. Nathan and Lillian Collins. It felt surreal. We had made it. Lillian was ecstatic. She twirled through the empty rooms, imagining furniture placements, color schemes, and where she would host dinner parties. "This is our castle, Nathan. The place where we'll grow old together," she had whispered that day, her fingers lacing through mine as we stood on the terrace, gazing at the city skyline. Her excitement was infectious, and I remember kissing her forehead, feeling like the luckiest man alive. Everything about our life seemed picture-perfect. We had the kind of relationship people envied, the ones they called goals in social media captions. We had met at a charity gala 5 years ago, a chance encounter that had changed my world. I had been captivated by her confidence, her laughter, the way she carried herself like she belonged to a world far grander than the one we lived in. She was unlike anyone I had ever met, ambitious, elegant, and fiercely independent. Our wedding had been just as grand as our love story, a destination ceremony in Santorini, overlooking the Aegean Sea. White roses, flickering candles, and an orchestra that played as we danced under the stars. We had vowed forever to each other, promising to build a future together. A future that, for me, meant security, partnership, and a love that could weather anything. I worked tirelessly to make sure we had everything we needed. My real estate firm had taken off in ways I could have only dreamed of. Big clients, luxury property deals, commissions that allowed us to live without limits. I spared no expense in making sure Lillian had everything she wanted. If she admired a designer bag, it was hers. If she dreamed of a weekend in the Maldives, we were on the next flight out. I wanted her to have the best, because in my mind, she deserved it. But now, looking back, I wonder, was I really building a life with her, or was I just financing her dreams? I had been blind to the subtle shifts in our marriage. At first, it was the little things. The way she became distracted during our conversations, the sudden obsession with high-end brands, the expensive jewelry that she never really explained. But I ignored it. After all, what was money if it made her happy? We had everything. A home that felt like a sanctuary, vacations that felt like fantasy, and a marriage that, at least from the outside, seemed flawless. People admired us. Power couple, they called us. Friends would shake their heads in awe when I'd pull up in my latest sports car with Lillian in the passenger seat, looking effortlessly glamorous. I thought we had it all. I thought I had it all. And that's the funny thing about life. Just when you think you're standing on solid ground, it has a way of reminding you that the very foundation you've built your world on can crumble in an instant. I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed the way Lillian's smiles never quite reached her eyes anymore, the way her phone was always turned face down, the nights she stayed out late with friends I had never met. But love is a strange thing. It blinds you. It convinces you that doubt is just paranoia, that suspicions are just insecurities whispering lies in your ear. So I silenced the whispers. I convinced myself that we were fine, that she loved me the way I loved her, that everything I had built, everything I had given, had been enough. If I had known then what I know now, I would have looked at that house differently. I wouldn't have seen it as a castle. I would have seen it for what it truly was, just another asset, a piece of real estate, something that, like everything else in life, could be bought, sold, and stolen. Because in the end, that's exactly what happened. I had spent years building our dream life, but I didn't realize that all along, I was the only one dreaming. Looking back, I can't say there wasn't a warning. The signs were there. Small, almost insignificant at first, like puzzle pieces scattered on a table, seemingly unrelated until you take a step back and see the full picture. The problem was, I didn't want to see it. I remember the first time something felt off. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had come home earlier than usual. My meetings wrapped up ahead of schedule, and I decided to surprise Lillian with dinner. I picked up her favorite sushi, the one from that upscale place downtown that required a reservation even for takeout. I wanted to see her smile, to watch her eyes light up in that way they used to when I did something thoughtful. But when I walked into the house, she wasn't there. Not in the living room, not in the kitchen, not in the bedroom. I checked my phone, no texts, no missed calls. Then I saw it. Her jewelry box, open on the dresser, her wedding ring missing. That was the first time my stomach twisted with something I couldn't name yet. She came home hours later, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly tousled like she had been out in the wind. When she saw me, she blinked. Just for a second, a flicker of something that almost looked like surprise. She wasn't expecting me to be here. "Oh," she said, dropping her handbag onto the couch. "You're home early." I forced a smile, holding up the takeout bag. "Thought I'd surprise you." She hesitated. A fraction of a second. If I hadn't been looking for it, I might not have noticed. "Oh, babe, I already ate," she said, breezing past me into the kitchen. "I met up with some friends." "Friends? Anyone I know?" I asked casually, following her. She didn't look at me as she reached for a glass. "Just some girls from the club." Lillian had joined an exclusive women's social club about 6 months ago. At first, I had been supportive. She wanted to network, to be around other ambitious women. But somewhere along the way, those club gatherings turned into late nights. Mysterious weekend retreats at luxury hotels. Dinners where she conveniently forgot to mention the names of the people she was with. And then there was the spending. Lillian had always liked nice things. I love that about her. She carried herself like she belonged in the kind of circles where people ordered bottles of Dom Perignon without glancing at the price. But recently, her spending had taken on a different tone. It wasn't just expensive bags and shoes anymore. It was reckless. She had booked a trip to Paris on a whim, claiming it was a girl's getaway. When I checked our credit card statement, I saw charges from 5-star restaurants and luxury boutiques. One receipt was for a custom-tailored suit, a man's suit. I asked her about it. She laughed, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Oh, that? I picked it up for my brother. You know how he's always so busy with work. He never shops for himself." Lillian's brother lived 3 states away and had a personal stylist. The excuses piled up. So did the missing hours, the unexplained phone calls, the way she never let her phone out of her sight anymore. Then, there was Marcus. I first met him at a charity event Lillian had insisted we attend. He was everything a man like me would naturally dislike. Flashy, arrogant, always too smooth. He had that kind of effortless charm that came from never having to work for anything. "This is Marcus," Lillian had introduced him, her hand lingering on his arm a second too long. "He's an investor." "Investor, my ass." I caught the way he looked at her, the way she looked back. I should have confronted her right then. I should have grabbed her hand, pulled her aside, and asked, "What the hell is going on?" But I didn't. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that my wife wouldn't betray me. I let her kiss my cheek, let her sip from her champagne, let her float through the crowd in that crimson dress like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong, and deep down, I knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. I was supposed to land the biggest real estate deal of my career that weekend. It was all lined up, the contracts, the negotiations, the final handshake that would seal it. The kind of deal that turns a wealthy man into an untouchable one. But none of that mattered the moment I stepped out of my car and saw the security guard standing in front of my house. My house. The house I bought. The house I built my marriage on. The man in uniform didn't move as I approached the gate. He stood tall, arms crossed, face blank. Something about his stance made the air feel heavier. "Evening," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I live here." I reached for the keypad, ready to punch in my entry code. The guard, a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s, stepped forward, blocking my access. "I'm sorry, sir," he said, voice firm. "You are not authorized to enter." I froze. For a second, I thought I had misheard him. Maybe I was exhausted from the trip, my mind playing tricks on me. "Excuse me?" I said, my fingers curling into a fist. He didn't flinch. "I have explicit instructions from the homeowner." You are not permitted to enter the premises. The homeowner. I blinked. That was me. I was the one who signed the mortgage. I was the one who put down the payment. I was the one who built this life. A cold sensation crawled up my spine. I stepped back, taking in the sight of my own home. Its grand white walls illuminated by the golden glow of the terrace lights. The manicured lawn perfectly trimmed, the floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the deep blue of the evening sky. And then I saw them, through the glass doors, past the sheer white curtains, standing in my living room. Lillian and Marcus. They were laughing. She had a champagne flute in her hand, the kind we only used for special occasions. He was beside her, his arm casually draped over the back of the couch, his other hand holding a glass of whiskey. Marcus leaned in, whispering something into her ear. She laughed, tilting her head back, her eyes bright with amusement, the same way she used to look at me. Then, as if she could feel my presence, Lillian turned toward the window. Our eyes met. For a moment, there was silence. And then she smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. One that carried no trace of guilt, no regret, just satisfaction. She raised her glass. A mock toast. Marcus followed suit, smirking as he clinked his glass against hers. The security guard shifted beside me. "Sir," he said, his voice softer now, almost hesitant, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I could hear my pulse in my ears. I should have been angry. I should have shouted, demanded answers, forced my way inside. But instead, I did something that confused even me. I smiled. A quiet, knowing smile. And then, I turned around and walked away. I could feel their eyes on my back as I made my way to my car. They thought they had one. They thought they had stripped me of everything, left me humiliated, broken. But they had no idea. Because while they celebrated inside the home I had built, they didn't realize that I was already planning how to burn their entire world to the ground. I drove aimlessly for a while, the city lights blurring into streaks of color as I processed what had just happened. My house, my wife, my life, ripped out from under me like I was nothing. But here's the thing. I wasn't nothing. They thought they had beaten me, that I would slink away in shame, disappear, and let them enjoy the fruits of my labor. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By the time I pulled into the parking garage of the Vinoy Renaissance Hotel, my mind was already sharpening into something cold and lethal. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to destroy them. Step 1. Information. The moment I reached my suite, I opened my laptop. If Lillian and Marcus thought they had covered their tracks, they were dead wrong. First stop, our bank accounts. Or at least, what was left of them. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through the transaction history. In the span of weeks, my once impressive savings had been drained, the money funneled into an account under a company name I didn't recognize, Valencia Holdings, LLC. A quick search told me everything I needed to know. It was a shell corporation, a fake company set up to launder money under the guise of business transactions. I clicked deeper. The listed owner? Marcus Crawford. I let out a slow breath, gripping the edge of the desk. I had given Lillian everything, and she had taken it all and handed it to the man she had been cheating with. But that wasn't even the worst part. Step 2. The house. I pulled up the property records next, heart pounding. Sold. The house had been sold. Not listed. Not pending. Sold. And guess what? It had been transferred at 70% of its actual value. A textbook sign of fraudulent asset liquidation. The name on the buyer's documents? Valencia Holdings, LLC. I clenched my jaw. They didn't just take my money. They didn't just take my home. They planned this. For months. While I was busy working late nights, closing deals, making sure Lillian had the best of everything, she was sitting across from me at the dinner table, smiling like nothing was wrong. While plotting my downfall, she had emptied my accounts, forged my signature, sold my own home right out from under me. And the final insult? She had used my money to do it. Step 3. The lawyer. I reached for my phone. There was only one person I trusted to handle this. Victor Hale? Victor wasn't just any lawyer. He was a specialist in corporate fraud and asset recovery. The kind of man who could dismantle an entire criminal operation with a single court order. I dialed his number. He picked up on the second ring. Nathan? His voice was calm, sharp, professional. It's late. What's going on? I exhaled. I need you to look up a company for me. Valencia Holdings, LLC. Also, I need to know how fast we can freeze financial transactions and stop a fraudulent real estate sale. There was a pause. Then, in a lower tone, he asked, "What happened?" I told him. Everything. By the time I was finished, he let out a long whistle. This isn't just a divorce case, Nathan. This is criminal fraud. If what you're saying is true, we can hit them with charges that will have them facing serious prison time. But we need to act fast. Transactions like this? The funds won't stay in that account for long. They'll move them overseas. Once that happens, it's a nightmare to recover. How long do we have? 24 hours, maybe less. I'll start drafting the emergency injunction now. Good, I said. And Victor? Yeah. Make sure she has no idea what's coming. Step 4. Surveillance. I wasn't going to rely on legal action alone. No. Before I burned their world down, I needed evidence. I scrolled through my contacts and called Jake Harris, a private investigator I had worked with before. A former detective, Jake was the guy people hired when they needed dirt. Real, undeniable, courtroom-grade dirt. Collins, Jake answered, his voice rough from years on the job. Long time. What's up? I need eyes on someone. Who? Lillian Collins. And Marcus Crawford. I gave him their details, their schedules, their usual haunts. I needed to know every move they made from now until I pulled the trigger on this plan. Jake chuckled. She finally slipped, huh? I didn't bother answering. You got it. I'll keep you posted. The calm before the storm. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, staring at the city lights beyond the window. They thought I was out, that I had walked away. Tomorrow, they would wake up in the world they stole from me. They would sip champagne, laugh, and bask in their victory. And then, in less than 24 hours, I would take everything back. By the time they realized what had happened, it would be too late. Lillian had made one fatal mistake. She thought I was just another fool blinded by love. She forgot that I was a businessman first. And in business, you don't just walk away from a bad deal. You annihilate the competition. The sun had barely risen when Victor called. His voice was clipped, efficient. We have them, he said. I sat up in bed, my mind instantly sharpening. Go on. We pulled the financial records. Lillian and Marcus didn't just take your money, they laundered it. Valencia Holdings LLC was set up a month ago, just before the first withdrawal from your account. The company has no legitimate business activity. It's a front. I exhaled, gripping the phone tighter. Meaning that in the eyes of the law, they didn't just steal from you. They engaged in financial fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. That's federal territory, Nathan. If we move now, we can freeze their assets before the money disappears overseas. Do it. The court order is already filed. The judge is reviewing it now. We should have it approved within a few hours. But I also found something else you're going to want to hear. I rubbed my temples. There's more? Victor let out a short laugh. Oh, there's a lot more. Marcus isn't just some smooth-talking investor. He's a con artist. He's done this before, 3 times, to be exact. He seduces wealthy women, convinces them to steal from their husbands, then leaves them high and dry once he's milked them for everything they have. 2 of his past partners are bankrupt. One is still in court trying to recover her losses. My jaw clenched. He wasn't just after my money. He was using Lillian. She thought she was in control. She thought she was upgrading. But she was nothing more than the next Mark. I almost laughed. It was poetic, really. She had betrayed me for a man who was going to do the same thing to her. Victor continued. If she was in on the con from the start, she'll go down as his accomplice. If she wasn't, well, she'll learn soon enough that Marcus doesn't do partnerships. He does exits. And usually they aren't clean. I ran a hand down my face, processing. And the house? Victor's tone darkened. That's where things get even worse. They didn't just sell it under market value. They used a fake buyer. It never actually transferred to a third party. It's still controlled by Valencia Holdings, which means Marcus owns it, at least on paper. He probably planned to resell it later for full price and pocket the difference. So he conned both of us at once. Exactly. I shook my head, a bitter chuckle escaping. What a dumbass. Victor sighed. It's common with scammers. They get greedy. He could have walked away clean, but instead, he wanted everything. The money, the house, and whatever else he could squeeze out before moving on to the next victim. I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling. He's not walking away from this. No, he's not, Victor agreed. I'm filing for an emergency injunction now. If it's approved, we can freeze the sale, lock down the bank accounts, and flag any attempts to move funds offshore. Once that's done, we'll hit them with fraud charges. I took a deep breath. How long? 6 hours, max. We're ahead of them, but not by much. You need to stay put. If Marcus realizes something's wrong, he'll bolt. Guys like him always have backup escape plans. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Understood. Good. And Nathan? Yeah. Whatever happens, don't do anything reckless. I smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. But I was lying. I didn't stay put. I needed to see something for myself. Pulling on a dark hoodie, I took a cab back to my old neighborhood. The security guard from the night before wasn't there anymore, probably because they thought I wasn't coming back. Idiots. I walked to the edge of my property, staying in the shadows. The curtains were open, and I could see them. Marcus was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, frustration tightening his features. Lillian sat on the couch, arms crossed, her expression pinched. I could read the situation without hearing a word. Something was wrong, and they knew it. Marcus was gesturing wildly now, his voice rising even through the glass. Lillian tried to say something, but he cut her off, his jaw tight, his patience unraveling. I smirked. Oh, she was starting to get it, wasn't she? She thought she was in control. She thought she was Marcus's equal, but she was just another pawn. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Jake, the private investigator. Me move in. Get the recordings. Jake, already ahead of you. You're gonna love this. My heart pounded with anticipation. Marcus and Lillian had no idea their entire conversation was being recorded. By the time they realized, it would be too late. I left before I could be spotted, heading straight back to the hotel. By the time I arrived, my phone buzzed with a message from Victor. Victor, we got it. Court order approved. Their accounts are frozen. House sale is blocked. Authorities have been notified. I exhaled, feeling the first wave of real satisfaction. Me. Perfect. Let them find out the hard way. And that's exactly what happened. Because the next morning, at exactly 9 a.m., Lillian and Marcus woke up to a financial nightmare. Their credit cards stopped working. Their bank accounts locked. The offshore transfers blocked. And the best part? The house, the very thing they stole from me, was legally mine again. That was the moment it hit them. They hadn't won. They had walked straight into a trap. And soon, they would realize just how deep that trap went. But first, I wanted to see them fall apart. And I didn't have to wait long. At 11 a.m. sharp, there was a frantic knocking at my hotel door. I took my time, straightening my suit, smoothing out the cuffs. Then, with a slow exhale, I walked to the door, unlocked it, and pulled it open. There they were, Lillian and Marcus, pale, shaking, panic written all over their faces. Lillian's lips trembled. Nathan, please, we need to talk. Marcus looked ready to be sick. They froze our accounts. There's an arrest warrant. We could lose everything. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Oh. I tilted my head. You mean my house? My money? My life that you tried to steal? They stammered, pleaded. I watched them for a moment, soaking it in, the desperation, the regret, the sheer panic in their eyes. And then I smiled. Come in, I said, stepping aside. They thought they still had a chance. They thought I was about to save them. But what they didn't know was that I was about to finish what they started. They rushed inside like drowning people reaching for a lifeline. Lillian's hands were shaking, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the fabric of her designer coat. Marcus, the ever-slick con man, had lost his usual smugness. His jaw was tight, his eyes darting to me, to the floor, then back to me. like a man searching for an escape he already knew didn't exist. I took my time closing the door, letting the silence stretch between us, letting them feel it. So, I turned slowly, arms crossed, my expression unreadable. "You're in trouble." Lillian's eyes filled with tears instantly. Fake ones. She had always been good at that. Weaponizing sympathy. "Nathan, please," her voice wavered, her lower lip trembling as she reached for my hand. "You have to help us." I stepped back. She flinched. Marcus was the first to speak. His voice was tight, forced. "Listen, man. This has gotten out of control. We just need a little time to fix things." "Fix things?" I let out a sharp laugh. "You mean fix the fraudulent real estate sale? The forged documents? Or the money laundering?" Lillian's breath hitched. "Nathan, it's not what you think." "Oh, it's exactly what I think." I cut in, my voice sharper now. "You stole from me. You sold my house. You drained my accounts. And now, when everything's falling apart, you come here?" She swallowed hard. "Nathan, I was stupid. I made a mistake." I tilted my head. "A mistake?" She nodded quickly, desperate. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I got caught up in everything, and Marcus convinced me it was the right move." Marcus shot her a look. "Are you serious right now?" Lillian turned on him in an instant, her voice rising, raw and frantic. "You told me it was foolproof. That Nathan would never find out. That we'd be set for life." Marcus' jaw clenched. "Oh, so it's all on me now?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "You didn't seem to care when you were popping champagne in his house." I watched, amused, as they turned on each other. The cracks were forming. The panic was setting in, and I hadn't even played my best cards yet. I walked over to the minibar, poured myself a drink, and took a slow sip. "You two are hilarious." They stopped arguing. Marcus exhaled sharply. "Nathan, listen, man. We just need a little help. We can fix this, all right? You just need to withdraw the fraud complaint. The bank will unlock the funds and—" I set my glass down hard. Both of them jumped. "You seriously think I'd help you?" I said, my voice low, steady. "You think after what you did, I'd save you?" Lillian wiped at her fake tears. "Nathan, please. You don't understand. If we don't fix this, we could go to jail." I finished for her. The air in the room shifted. Marcus paled. Lillian's breath hitched. You wouldn't." I leaned in just slightly, my expression calm. Too calm. "I already did." Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Lillian let out a small, strangled sound. Marcus' nostrils flared as his hands clenched into fists. I reached for my phone and tapped the screen. "Everything's been filed. Your assets are frozen. The real estate fraud is under investigation." "And Marcus?" I smiled. "Turns out the feds have been waiting for a reason to look into you." His face drained of color. You called the feds?" he choked out. "Oh, I didn't have to." I set my phone down. "They already had a file on you. I just accelerated the process." Lillian turned to him, frantic. "You told me we were in the clear. You promised me we wouldn't get caught." Marcus looked ready to explode. "And you said Nathan wouldn't fight back. That he'd roll over like some—" "I don't roll over," I interrupted, standing tall. The room fell silent again. They were trapped. Nowhere to go. No cards left to play. Lillian turned back to me, her voice barely a whisper. "Nathan, please." I lifted a hand, stopping her. "You made your choice," I said, my voice even. "And now, you're going to live with it." At that moment, there was a sharp knock on the door. I didn't have to check. I already knew who it was. Lillian and Marcus froze. Another knock. Lillian's lip quivered. "Nathan?" I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped aside. Two federal agents stood there, badges gleaming. Lillian made a choked sound. Marcus took a step back. "Nathan Collins?" the taller agent asked. I nodded. "They're all yours." Marcus lunged. No. We can fix this. We can." The agents moved fast. Before Marcus could reach me, he was shoved against the wall, his hands wrenched behind his back. Lillian let out a scream. Wait. I didn't. The second agent grabbed her wrists. Lillian Collins, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and real estate fraud. She collapsed. No, 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 no. Nathan, please. Tell them it's a mistake. Please. Please. I watched her struggle, her face streaked with tears, her perfect world crumbling around her. I let her words hang in the air. Then, I picked up my drink, took another slow sip, and simply said, I don't help criminals. The last thing I saw before the door closed was Lillian's face. Broken. Shattered. Realizing that this time, there was no way out. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt peace. The moment the door shut behind them, I stood there in silence, listening to the chaos unravel beyond the walls. Lillian's sobs. Marcus shouting. The sharp, clipped voices of the federal agents reading them their rights. It was a sound I would never forget. I turned away from the door, exhaling slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My breath was steady. There was no rush of adrenaline, no sudden wave of triumph. Just calm. I walked to the window, pulling back the curtains. Outside, blue and red lights flashed against the pavement, illuminating the expensive cars that once symbolized my perfect life. Marcus was shoved into the back of a black SUV, his face contorted with rage. Lillian was different. She was crying, her hands cuffed in front of her, her shoulders trembling as she pleaded with one of the agents. I couldn't hear her, but I could read her lips. It was him. It was Marcus. Please, you have to believe me. I almost laughed. Throwing him under the bus already? Classic. But it wouldn't save her. Not this time. She turned her head, frantically searching for something. For me. And the second she found me, standing at the window, she froze. Our eyes locked. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not fear of being caught. Not fear of losing money. Fear of me. Fear of the man she thought she could manipulate. The man she thought would always be there to pick up the pieces, to forgive, to rescue her. Not this time. This time, I was the one who walked away. The aftermath, I didn't go back to the house. There was nothing left for me there. Instead, I spent the next few weeks in meetings with my lawyer, ensuring that Lillian and Marcus didn't have a single loophole to escape through. Victor was ruthless, filing every motion necessary to bury them. The house? Legally mine again. The money? Recovered. The reputation they tried to destroy? Restored. The trial was swift. Marcus, with his long history of fraud, received a 12-year sentence. No parole. No second chances. Lillian, despite her desperate attempts to play the innocent victim, wasn't so lucky either. The jury didn't buy her act. The forged documents. The offshore transfers. The recorded conversations Jake had gathered of her discussing the fraud with Marcus. She was sentenced to 5 years. 5 years in a cold, gray cell. 5 years to think about how she threw away everything for a con man. Her final plea 3 months later, I got a letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Lillian. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Nathan, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know what to say. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I loved you. I really did. I don't know when I lost myself. Maybe it was the money. Maybe it was Marcus. Maybe it was something inside me that was always broken. I thought I was chasing happiness, but all I did was destroy the one person who truly cared about me. I wish I could take it all back. I wish I could go back to the nights we used to sit on the terrace, drinking wine, dreaming about the future. I wish I could go back to the day you bought this house for us and tell myself, don't ruin this. Don't throw it away. But it's too late. I know that. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. About everything. I hope someday you find happiness again. Lillian. I set the letter down. Stared at it. Felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No longing. Because I had already moved on. A life reclaimed 1 year later, I stood at the gates of my home. Not our home. Mine. The house had been remodeled, every trace of Lillian erased. New floors. New walls. New memories waiting to be made. I exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of everything I had lost. Everything I had gained. I had built this life once, and I could build it again. As I stepped inside, I whispered, "Never again." Because this time, I wasn't building a life for anyone else. This time, I was building it for me. 1 year. That's how long it took to rebuild. Not just my finances, not just my home, but myself. People love to talk about resilience, about how time heals all wounds. But the truth? Time doesn't heal anything. You heal yourself. And that's exactly what I did. The house was the first thing I took back. I didn't just reclaim it. I transformed it. Every room Lillian had decorated? Gone. Every overpriced luxury piece she insisted we needed? Replaced. I tore out the old furniture, repainted the walls, changed the lighting. I even ripped out the rose garden she had planted and replaced it with something new. Something mine. For the first time since buying this place, it actually felt like home. Not a museum of a failed marriage. Not a crime scene of betrayal. Mine. Then, there was my career. Losing everything had forced me to reevaluate how I did business. I had been too comfortable, too trusting. I had built a real estate empire with my hands, but I hadn't protected it. That changed. I cut out dead weight, changed my financial structures, put protections in place that made sure no one, not a wife, not a business partner, not even a damn lawyer, could ever touch what was mine again. And the result? My company was bigger than ever. In 1 year, I recovered everything Lillian and Marcus tried to steal and doubled it. The last thing I rebuilt was myself. It wasn't just about money, or business, or the house. It was about who I had become. The man I was before? He was too trusting, too blinded by love to see the truth. He had ignored the warning signs. I wasn't that man anymore. I had learned the hard way that people don't always mean the things they say. That love can be a lie. That loyalty can be bought and sold. But I also learned that losing everything doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're free. The letter from Lillian and I received another letter last week. Lillian. Again. I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity got the better of me. "Nathan, I don't know if you'll ever read this. They moved me to another facility last month. It's smaller, quieter, the kind of place where you have a lot of time to think. I thought a lot about writing to you again. I don't expect a reply. I just needed to say something. I was wrong about everything. About you. About Marcus. About myself. I thought I was making the right choices, but I wasn't choosing at all. I was running. From responsibility. From my own failures. From the fact that deep down, I always believed I didn't deserve a good life. I did love you, Nathan. That wasn't a lie. But I let my own greed, my own selfishness, destroy something that could have been real. And for what? A man who used me the same way I used you? A life built on stolen money? I lost everything. But the worst part is knowing that I lost you. I know you don't owe me anything. But if I could ask for one thing, it wouldn't be forgiveness. It would just be this. I hope you're happy now. Truly happy. Because no matter what I did, you deserve that. Lillian. I set the letter down. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anything. Because Lillian was a ghost now. A chapter 1 had already closed. She was right about one thing, though. I was happy. Happier than I had ever been. Not because I got revenge. Not because I had my money back. Because I had finally learned who I was without her. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. 1 year ago, I stood outside my own home, locked out, humiliated, and betrayed. Tonight, I stood at the same spot, but as a different man. The gate opened automatically at my command, the security system recognizing only my voice. My name, Nathan Collins, sole owner, was engraved in polished steel by the entrance. No more shared assets. No more blind trust. Everything here was mine. The house had changed, not just in appearance, but in energy. I replaced every trace of Lillian's existence. The expensive, pretentious decor? Gone. The furniture she picked to impress people she didn't even like? Burned. I designed a home that felt lived in. A place where I could breathe, where I could exist without ghosts. The terrace, once a stage for her fake socialite parties, was now a place of peace. I spent my evenings there, sipping whiskey, watching the city skyline, alone but not lonely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't building something for someone else. I was building for me. Lillian's third letter arrived last week. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. She was my past. And I had finally learned that the past doesn't deserve a seat at my table. So I threw it in the fire, watched the paper curl, blacken, and turn to ashes, just like the version of myself who once would have cared. My business was thriving. My house was mine again. But most importantly, I was free. Free from lies. Free from manipulation. Free from the weight of a love that was never real. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was reborn. As I stepped onto the terrace that night, I let myself remember, not the betrayal, not the theft, not the humiliation, but the lesson. I had walked into hell and come out untouchable, and as I raised my glass to the city, I whispered the only words that truly mattered: never again.